Mustache.
Look at that.
I know, right?
Here we go. We're live. Where is our thing? I'm doing this all by myself. What? Hang on.
Yeah. Please bear with us because we are shorthanded this evening.
Yes.
Started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself. I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin. Would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Oh, I can talk. I was like, what the heck? I'm like all like quiet here. I'm multitasking here a little bit as well. But welcome to the Hockey Podcast. We are live on YouTube and Facebook.com. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter, podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast. And then you could subscribe to the audio version of this shortly after. We are the defense. Hello, Devin. How are you?
Hello. I've always been a defenseman, so I'm ready to play a bit shorthanded here tonight.
I'm versatile. I'm known to be forward, but I've also been known to be a terrible defenseman. So yeah, and so I'm just getting everything shared here as we get this all set up here. So just bear with me. We are on after the Toronto Maple Leafs swept the Edmonton Oilers in 3 games here. They won tonight 6-1, and the Leafs are now 12 points ahead of the Oilers in the Scotia North, looking pretty much. Bear with me here. We are also live on Facebook. Sorry, I'm multitasking. My apologies. There we go. So the Leafs have basically the Edmonton Oilers. Let's look at this. The Edmonton Oilers had a chance to dig into the Leafs. They came into this series 4 points behind. They are now 12 points behind the Leafs, who are sitting comfortable and cooled in the den here for first place for the Scotia North Division. Devin, okay, I'm going to. We have to talk about the Leafs, but can I start with what we call the hot take?
Absolutely. I love hot takes.
Okay.
Lay it on me.
Okay. Listen to me here. I'm going to piss off some fans of the Edmonton Oilers.
Beautiful.
When I say that.
I always love pissing off Edmonton Oilers fans.
Okay. The Edmonton Oilers are frauds. They are fake, phony frauds. Any time that this team has had an opportunity to make some sort of statement, a clutch statement, a chance to, like, when it's an important game, this team does not show up. It never has, it never will, and it showed it again. One goal with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and whatever else that you have put out there in 3 games against the Toronto Maple Leafs. You're all these superstar. Oh my gosh, Connor McDavid's the greatest. Leon Draisaitl's the greatest. Look at us. We're hot. We kicked the Flames' ass 7-1. When it comes down to playing a good team, the Edmonton Oilers have never shown up. They never will. That is a fact. Sorry, it is not a good team. Quit it. Quit telling me how great the Oilers are, because when it matters, they suck. And they've always have, and they always will.
I love it. I love that passion. The one thing I got away from that from being a Flames fan is that you're saying that the Flames aren't a good team.
The Flames suck. The Canucks suck. Let's be honest here. There is one really good team in this division. There's one pretty good team in this division, and 5 really bad teams in this division. Sorry, the only two teams in this division that are any good are Toronto and Winnipeg. Everybody else this is not a good. This is really bad. Honestly.
Yeah, it doesn't look good for Edmonton. Montreal's on a skid right now, and I mean we've been talking ad nauseum for the past week and a half to 2 weeks, let alone probably even a month. If we're going back to Vancouver and how shitty they've been, and Calgary's hasn't shown up for the past. If they haven't had a full 60-minute effort in a very long time, and the consistency isn't there for Calgary. Because when they do show up, they actually play decently well and they can contend. Definitely for a playoff spot within this division. But right now at the top, it's Toronto and Winnipeg, and Toronto is by far the best team in the division right now. And I know that might piss off some of our listeners, but that's the truth right now. My question is, how good are the Leafs outside this division? I think going into the season, you look at the Discovery Central division and you see a lot of mediocre teams within there. Right now, Chicago, who we thought was going to be at the bottom, is fourth within that division, and they're leading Columbus by 5 points, and they're back from Florida by 2 points. Who would have thought, after Kirby Dach going down, after John Taves going down, after losing Corey Crawford as your goalie, that they were able to come out and show up and actually be a good team this year? I wouldn't have. And then you go down to the Mass Mutual East Division. God, I hate these names. And you have.
I'm proud of you for getting the sponsors in. I mean, I think NHL.com is appreciating your love. Let me make sure that we'll just share the standings here, Red. If anyone has any comments or any questions or anything like that, put them in there. We will get to them here as well. And we will. Don't worry. We'll talk about the Leafs. We have to talk about the Leafs as well because they have. They've earned our conversation for sure. So okay. So this is the Discover Central. Actually, I have to correct myself. The Oilers are 10 points behind the Leafs. The Jets are 9 points back, and the Leafs have a game in hand. As we look at the North Division standings, I just think there's only two good teams in this division right now. Yeah. I don't think that the Oilers are good. I don't think the Flames are good. I don't think the Canucks are good. I think the Senators work very hard, but they're a long way away, and I just don't think the Oilers are a good team. I think that they got hot. They faced some matchups. They've got some teams in kind of the right mode, but I don't think that they're a good team either. I mean, yes, they can beat up on the Calgarys and the Vancouvers, but I just don't think they're as good as. I don't think they're a good team. I'm sorry. I think they're fraud.
Yep. And you go down into the Discover Central, like I said before. You have Tampa, Carolina up there, Florida, who's been streaking hard, and once again Chicago fourth. Could you who would have thought that Chicago would have been fourth?
Yeah, I know.
At the beginning of the year, you would have thought they would have been down there with Detroit, right? But
Dallas is down with Detroit. Look at Dallas.
Well, I mean, look at games in hand, though. You have
that's true.
7 games in hand. Detroit has 7 games in hand over Dallas just because of the COVID. What's happened with them down there in Texas? So they're as far as winning percentage, I'm sure they're up there. Then you go to Washington, Islanders, Boston. Like the Mass Mutual East is just from Pittsburgh up. It's anybody's race really into getting into the playoffs. Washington losing Samsonov for a long time, losing Kuznetsov, Orlov, and Ovi, obviously. And they're still up there. So it's I'm as far as like comparing each division, I'm really curious on where Toronto actually stands within the entire NHL. And then you got Vegas, St. Louis, Minnesota. In Colorado, like the whole Honda West division, going down to Arizona, I don't know. I thought that they weren't going to really be contend, really, but I mean, with Darcy Kemper and Antti Ranta backstopping them, it seems like they're doing okay.
Oh, hang on. I got a phone call. Hang on. Hello? Yeah. Okay. I'll let him know. Okay. That was Honda. They're very upset at you right now that you didn't mention the Honda West and you mentioned everyone else of the so that
My apologies. My apologies.
Yeah.
We got to get the sponsors in here because they're the ones who are paying us.
Right. Yeah. They're paying us the $0.00 to do these podcasts. Yeah.
the free 99.
Yeah.
So going back to the North Division, I just don't know how Toronto matches up and if they are just that good or if just the North Division is just that shitty. At the beginning of the year, you would have thought that Toronto Toronto was number one over the massive consensus of all the people talking about it, TSN, Sportsnet, even people outside of that were saying that Toronto is just that good and trying to figure out, okay, well, let's not pump them up too much, but it seems like they're the real deal. You would have thought that Winnipeg would be up there within the top 2 or 3. But after that,
someone had them second in this division, by the way.
You did. Absolutely, you did.
Was I laughed at by a certain someone that was unable to show up tonight, by the way?
My brother, Sean. Yes. Bearded Canucks 03. Yeah. He was laughing and scoffing at you a little bit, along with a couple others on the podcast. And listen, like I didn't think that they'd be as good as they are. I just didn't think that they were getting the right respect with that back end. They're being scoffed at with not having enough depth. Even after the second line, not even talking about the defense, that the depth wasn't quite there, but they've shown that they're able to do it. Laurent Brossoit has shown that he is a good backup goalie. And when people were saying that he wasn't, I was thinking to myself, I don't understand why they don't think that. I mean, crazy stats here for Flames fans. Laurent Brossoit is the best goaltender that has been drafted by the Flames in the last 20 years.
Where are you basing this? Where are you basing?
It's about like, okay, his success in the NHL. That's been drafted.
By drafted.
By drafted, not free agent signing, not anything else. Drafted by the Flames. He is the best, bar none, period. And that is disgusting for the Flames. Check it out. Yeah. Start searching.
David Riddick wasn't.
He wasn't drafted. He was signed.
You're right. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. That is crazy. Oh my gosh. That's an interesting stat. I think you should tweet that out.
I'm not going to take credit for that. I heard that on 960 from Ryan Pinder. But that blows my mind. And the fact that he's able to, within the past, because he got traded from Calgary to Edmonton. And I believe
it was the Steve
Ladislav
Schmid trade. Yes.
Yep. Steve Staples, Ladislav Schmid. I believe there was another one in there within that trade, but then I believe he either got traded from Edmonton or he signed as a free agent to Winnipeg.
He was basically, a lot of people thought he was this. It was interesting because a lot of people thought he was done in Edmonton and his career was over. And a lot of people were, and this is where the downfall of the people thought it were the Jets was like, if Hellebuck's done, what you've got Brossoit. But a lot of times, I don't want to be super hot takey here already. Well, although I already was.
Keep it rolling, man. Keep going.
I don't want to be super ridiculous here, but I think that there have been times that Brossoit has actually outplayed Hellebuck. There was a time that I'll have to look at the stats here again, but Brossoit's stats were better than Hellebuck's.
Sorry, go for it.
You compare the Jets and the Canucks as an example. Brossoit is giving them better goaltending than what Holtby is giving the Canucks goaltending right now. And that is, to me, I think that's one of the better stories. Brossoit is one of the better stories of the North Division for sure.
He definitely is. Even going back to last year when, because Hellebuck just won the Vezina, right? And I remember him coming on to TSN 1050 in Toronto, and he was talking about how he was giving Laurent Brossoit such props because they push each other. And I feel like that wasn't taken seriously enough because it's hard to really like filter out what's true and what's kind of just bullshit when it comes to player interviews, whether or not it's cliche or they're just speaking out of their ass or whatever. But I feel like he was genuine within that because the only reason why I know Brossoit has been as good as Hellebuck has said that he is because of fantasy. I'm a huge fantasy guy. I love fantasy. I'm in 3 leagues this year, and the past 2 years he's been phenomenal. And whenever I see that Hellebuck isn't in, he's one of my first guys that I go to, just because he has been that good. And even with that quote unquote shitty lack of depth defense, he's been able to put up decent numbers. And I mean, look at it right now. His save percentage is better at a 2.19 over Hellebuck. Hellebuck has a 2.59 save percentage. I guess goals against. Sorry, that was goals against. Save percentage is way better than Hellebuck. Granted, when he gets shot on as much as Hellebuck does, then yeah, there's going to be more that goes in. But overall, as a backup, he has played very, very well and is probably one of the most underrated backups in this league, along with Curtis McElhinney.
Well, and I think with this division specifically, one of the themes that I think, and this will kind of blend in with the Leafs, is the difference has been depth. The depth of some teams have the depth, and you're getting depth results. Like last night with the Jets and the Canucks, Mason Appleton showed up. When the Oilers were beating the Flames, Gaetan Haas was scoring a goal. And
Josh Archibald,
the Josh Archibalds, and Gaetan Haas's. The Canucks, we've talked about the bottom 6 issues there. With the Leafs, and the tweets were laughing. The tweets were laughing about the senior citizens named Joe Thornton and Jason Spezza. Yeah. And, I don't want to be Gord Miller here, but I do think that there's a little bit of an apology owed here. The Leafs, yes, all the talk of that top 4 or whatever, that bottom 6, or that depth, then what Thornton and Spezza have brought to this team has been so immeasurably valuable. There's no question. You look at that, when watch the Leafs and what they play, there is a structure and there is a respect that I think that can only be explained with some maturity. And there's one other guy I do want to talk about here when we blend here, but what Thornton and Spezza have brought to this team, we can make the TSN parody jokes all we want. The fact of the matter is they have been one of the differences of why the Leafs are ahead of everybody else is they are contributing in a massive way. Spezza had 3 points tonight. He's continuing to contribute. You get a shutout from Michael Hutchinson. You got a shutout from Jack Campbell.
The Hutchinson one is just it completely and utterly blows my mind. The fact that the amount of times that he's been brought down, back up, traded for, and it kind of goes back to your first point that Edmonton are frauds. Honestly, Michael Hutchinson should not be in this league, and that's a complete and utter honesty. He should be in the AHL, but with everything that's going on, it's the Leafs' best option outside of Jack Campbell and Anderson. So with that firepower up front with Edmonton, you think that they would be able to at least get one goal?
Hold on. What firepower?
You're talking about. Sorry, go for it. Rant. Go for it.
Okay, yeah, McDavid, Draisaitl. Wow, yeah. What other firepower do they have?
And that's been the criticism of the Edmonton Oilers for the past 3 to 5 years is that, yeah, okay, you have all these fucking number one draft picks of Eberle, of Hall, of Nugent Hopkins, of McDavid, of Draisaitl, and nothing's really come of it.
Like, you, in some ways, if you can contain, you can contain Connor McDavid, you have a really good chance of beating the Oilers.
The thing with Connor McDavid, man, is that he's a one-man show. And whether or not one guy is able to get open and he's able to pass the puck to him, it's either that or the fact that he's able to wind up in his defensive zone, gain a bunch of speed, have the skill that he has, have the hands that he has, be able to undress 3 to 5 players on the ice and go and score a goal. Yeah, that is McDavid-esque, period. Outside of that, what does he have?
As Tyler has consistently pointed out, his defensive game, and I'm just going to be polite here, lacks.
It fucking sucks, man. I'm not going to be polite.
It just...
Sorry, Tyler. I didn't mean to swear. This might be a very much a
I don't know if Tyler's dad has given us messages about.
I apologize, Tyler's dad.
Yeah,
Mr. Noble Nation dad. But
sorry, Tyler's dad, and to the fans out there.
Yes, this is who I am, and I am smart, but I swear.
There are stats about being smart and swearing. There's apparently, I don't know.
Is there?
Apparently, if you swear, there's a level of intelligence considered to that.
I consider it passion, to be honest.
That's fair.
It's about like saying fucking instead of having some sort of bridge or crutch word instead of like fucking yes. Anyways, get off track here.
You're calling me out here.
No. I say fucking a lot, or I used to, and I realized that it was a crutch word. So, yeah, going back to Edmonton, it's just like they don't have the depth, they don't have the supporting pieces together to help those star players play well. Look at Pittsburgh. You have Crosby, Malkin, Letang, but you have the Jake Gensels, you have the Rusts. You have the Doolins on the back end there that are able to help the star players be a star player. And right now in Edmonton, you don't have those pieces. And it's unfortunate because with those two players, you have a massive cap hit. And I feel like I'm calling the kettle black, but it's true. I mean, you just have so much tied up within those two players that you're not able to support them the way that they need it. Unlike call me a Leaf homer, but you have at least 4 players within there. You have Marner, Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, and even Morgan Riley, Jake Muzzin. Like you have that depth, and I'm coming full circle here with your first question there. You have the old school guys, the veterans of Joe Thornton and Jason Spezza, the Zach Bogosians, that are able to support those young good players and are able to make them good and support them in the right way. And right now Edmonton can't do that, or they just don't have it.
Zach Bogosian was out of the league before COVID, and he was basically like a cast off, like the Lightning picked him off the scrap heap basically, and now he's I don't think you can, if you're a Leafs fan, you can't complain about him at all.
I honestly was complaining about him at the beginning of the year. I was like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, how is he benefiting the team? But
is he better than Tyson Barrie?
Oh, they're completely different players. It's hard to compare the two, but the impact, it's like the Neil Lucic comparison. The impact that Bogosian has in comparison to Barrie is bar none, because within inside that room, I've heard Barrie is a very good locker room player, but Bogosian, he brings more stability on that back end than Barrie does, and I'm sure he probably has the exact same effect within that room, maybe more than Barrie does. And like the whole comparison with Lucic and Neal and people shitting on Flames fans for saying that they won the trade. Absolutely, they fucking won the trade. As of right now, absolutely they did. Lucic has been the best Lucic he's been in years. Even before he was in L.A. His last 2 years that he was in Boston, he wasn't good. He was mediocre at best. But I feel like he's been able to raise the bar and be more leadership, be more of a leadership role within the Calgary Flames dressing room than he has been in the past 5 years. And that to me speaks more. And the fact that he's actually producing on the ice, you can see that he cares. That speaks more to me than he's a power play specialist for both Neal and Barry. And what do they do 5-on-5? 5-on-5 happens more often than a power play time. And power play is important, but 5-on-5 means more, period.
Yeah. And it's that veteran presence. It's finding those guys that Dubas has done. And I think that there's one guy that I think we need to give some credit to. And this will be a blend. If there is any evidence that the Flames don't seem to have their coaching or concepts quite together, it's TJ Brodie. TJ Brodie has been outstanding for the Leafs. Even tonight, his stick, he does his dive thing or whatever, but he's been a steady, calm influence there. Him and Morgan Riley, they had a rough little bit of a start, but they've got it together. And man, just watching what TJ Brodie has been to the Leafs, this is not the same TJ Brodie that's been with the Flames. And it has been a marked difference.
It has been. It's when you don't notice TJ Brodie, that's when he's doing the best work. Outside of his defensive zone, when you notice TJ Brodie is making that first strong first pass out of his zone, he's getting himself out of trouble within his defensive zone. If there's a odd man rush, he's breaking that up, and he's doing a good job of it. I just feel like I think that is a true testament of a change of scenery can really help a person and really help a player thrive. And they didn't have a good start, but once again, you got to gain some chemistry within your defensive partner and gain some trust and understand how they play. You can understand how they play when you're watching from afar and watching from watching on TV or from the press box. But once you're actually on the ice with him, like that's a massive difference. From a guy who's played the game at a decently high level, you do need that trust, and you need to gain that trust with your defensive partner. And if you don't have it, then it's just complete and utter chaos. And it seems like they finally gelled and they finally found their groove. And rolling Jake Muzzin, Justin Holl, and Morgan Riley and Brodie. As a coaching staff, you got to be thrilled about that. You have to be so happy that you're able to roll those two defensive pairings out night after night and not worry about their defensive zone. And there's going to be miscues here every once in a while, but the majority of the time, God, that's a scary top four there, and let alone having a rotation of Zach Bogosian, of Travis Dermott, of Lehkonen, and Sandin every once in a while. Like it's working out for them this year, and I don't see them not doing well in the playoffs. And once again, it circles back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. I'm really curious on how they are against anybody outside the North Division, and the best of the best outside the North Division. That who knows if they're able to get there, but I feel like they will, and I feel like their depth is going to shine, especially with in the playoffs when you have some resilience and some pushback from the opposition. You have the Joe Thorntons, you have the Jason Spezza, you have the Zach Bogosians that are able to rally the troops, not just as a team, but on the forwards and defensive side, because if you have both of those, God, it can be scary for the opposition, whoever they're playing.
And I guess this is the question for the Leafs going forward for the second half of the season, and how the Leafs approach this trade deadline. The advantage that the Leafs have now is if they make a trade with the team with the States, of course, you have the quarantine, but they don't need anybody right now. They don't need anyone on this team that is going to get them over that hump. They're pretty much over that hump, and unless they get bored, which is possible, and they hit a slide and they hit some adversity, which are all of these things possible, they should finish first. So as the Leafs approach the trade deadline, the advantage is you don't need to bring someone in right away for your 2-week quarantine. You can bring them in, you can have them get acclimatized, and then you have an extra depth piece that you can bring in for the playoffs. And that is the advantage that I think the Leafs will have getting into the odds-on favorite to be heading into that Final Four that right now it looks like they have a path towards.
Yeah.
Have they played Winnipeg yet, though?
Yes, they have. Yep. I think they played 2 games against Winnipeg as of right now. I'm just pulling straws right now. But your thought process there as far as depth piece, you don't want to. When a team is rolling, you don't want to disrupt the room, right? You want to make sure that they are able to keep rolling the way that they are, make sure that they're cohesive and that they have camaraderie. But if you bring in someone significant, then that could change the room. And that would be my one criticism, or just caution, air of caution towards Kyle Dubas is that if you want to make a difference within the playoffs or before the playoffs, then just get depth pieces, get people in that are, your seventh defenseman to make sure that you do have defensive depth, another forward here or there that you're able to put in if there's going to be an injury or two. And other than that, like you don't. Why would you fix something that's good? And right now they're rolling. And I'm not saying that they're going to roll through the entire North Division, but they definitely could. And if that is my worry, is that they don't have the adversity. They're not facing enough adversity throughout this season as they could, and that could definitely change. We've seen the swings of playing the exact same division throughout the entire year. Look at the Flames and Canucks. They have not been able to have consistency because one game is good, one game's bad, or you have 2 games that are bad, one game's good, and it's just they could go on a downswing, especially if they have injuries. But that might be good for the diversity factor. As long as they're healthy going into the playoffs, then they definitely can be scary, and they can intimidate teams, especially with 2 rounds against this same division. And then you have your quote unquote conference finals against a team they haven't even seen before. And looking forward, I think that's going to be a telltale sign of who is really good within this league, because you will be having interconference or interdivision games and trying to figure out who's the best. And that's the fun thing about this year, is that you have no idea.
Yeah, you really don't, and it's all going to depend on who goes out of every division. And by the way, the Leafs and Jets have played once. The Jets, the Jets and Leafs play next week, 3 games in Toronto. So that
Beautiful.
will be fascinating.
That's going to be great hockey to watch. I even though I know that the majority of our fans probably don't like the Leafs, but if you want to watch good hockey, like I do, watch that, and it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top of that 3-game series.
Yeah, that's going to be absolutely fascinating. The Jets are on a 5-game road trip. They got the Canadians twice, and then they're off to the Jets. So that's going to be very interesting as well. And that transitions the Brody comment and where the Leafs are at. And we'll dig into this the playoff, the Final Four part, and the strategy around that and trade deadline in terms of a contender, what you do more as we get closer to that. Because I do think that there's another fascinating conversation there. But if we transition to the Flames, who
do we have to?
Yeah,
just kidding.
They crapped the bed against Ottawa. They lost 6-1. Then they go back to the bubble lines. They go to Monahan, Gaudreau, Lindholm. They bring back the 3M line. It's Bennett, Dubé, and Lucic. They win 6-3, and then they come out on Monday and it's no good. And then Milan Lucic, after 960 came out, and it was a comment that kind of hit the airwaves. It was sort of a shock to the system. I'm going to find it here. I won't play it, but I'll find it here. But kind of get your impression here of the Flames. I know that you seem really excited about talking about the Flames, but kind of where are you at right now?
It's okay. Going back to the bubble lines. The top 3 lines that we've seen for the past however long, past 2 or 3 years, it's been, you're going to have the chemistry. You're going to have that little bit of jump, especially when they haven't been playing that well. You want to show that you actually care and you give a shit, but I don't think long term that it's successful. Like, why, if it was so successful in the bubble, then why would you want to change it up in the off season and see Lindholm at center? Why would you want to see Backlund and Mangiapane with someone else other than Kachuk? Why would you want to see Kachuk up top? Why would you fix something that doesn't need to be fixed? And that's the issue, is that they saw the flaws within having such a top-heavy top line, number one line with Johnny Monty and Lindholm, and then you have Mangiapane, Kachuk, and Backlund as your second line, quote unquote, and then you have your third line, which was arguably your best line in the bubble last year, which was Dubé, Lucic, and Bennett, and there's something wrong within, God, it's the same shit. It's just something wrong within that dressing room and within that core, within the cohesiveness and the chemistry within that team, and it's bleeding out. You have little band-aids here and there of going back to the quote unquote bubble lines, but it still doesn't mean that the same makeup, the same team is changed. And Lucic said it best.
I'll read it. It's unacceptable.
Please.
You can't have everyone show up on Saturday and then expect it to be easy tonight. I think that's our problem right now. Sometimes we want it to be too easy. You hear a lot of outside noise talking about coaching, all this style of play and all this bullshit, but it has nothing to do with the coaches. It has everything to do with the guys that they're playing. It seems like we just want it easy on a night-to-night basis. We don't want to work hard like we did when this coaching staff took over last year. There's more than enough people in this organization. I don't want to hold on to something here. There's more than enough people in this organization to need to look in the mirror. I think that the most interesting thing that Lucic said there was people. He didn't say players. He said people.
So then who do you think he's talking about?
I think he's calling out the organization. I think he's calling out flat out where this organization is. I think he's seeing an apathy within this organization. And I think he's calling it out. I think he's mentioning players. Yes.
So
I
he's
don't think
calling out. He's calling out the GM. Let's be honest here. He's calling out the GM. He's calling out the owners, the ownership group, and I think that the ownership group has been a subtle burn of embers within the past 5 years of ownership, of the fact that they aren't willing to spend enough dough on coaches. And maybe that's not what he's saying, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, outside of that, he's defending Jeff Ward, who is a good friend of his, and goes back to him in Boston because he was assistant. Jeff Ward was assistant coach in Boston when they won the Cup in 2011 against the Canucks, by the way.
Yes, they did. Yes, I was just sort of sitting here and thought when you were saying that. It's the part of this. This is there definitely seems to be a divide within this locker room. There definitely seems to be a section of this locker room, and we're not in there, but I can only go by what I'm observing here. That seems to be a section of this group of I'll take it one step further. There's a section of a group of players that don't respect Jeff Ward, and there's a section of a group of players that I think that they know they will last longer here than Jeff Ward will. So, even if you scratch one of them, they don't care. Ward's the one that's gonna be the scapegoat, and they're not.
Yep.
And I've made it clear I'm not a Jeff Ward fan. I don't think that it was the right hire. And I think it's for a lot of those reasons. But I think that to me stinks of a very arrogant locker room. And that's something that needs to change. Like the Flames just don't have. This has been their identity. Their identity is that they're lethargic. Their identity is that they're inconsistent. Their identity is that they don't give a shit. I don't know if Chris Versteeg sort of was talking a little bit on 960 a little bit this morning about their structure and how they're playing. And even Kevin the Extra talked about that a little bit today too. It's just, they're a really easy team to play with right now. They're obvious and they're predictable in their style. And that has to change. And I mean, that's partially Jeff Ward making some strategic changes for sure, but there's just some players that need to make some changes too.
So what Jeff Ward was saying, or what Chris Versteeg was saying this morning, was that he noticed the Flames very structurally. Every time that they get the puck in their defensive zone, they change, and it's not a wheel and deal. It's like, okay, defense, stop behind the net. Let's get a change. Let's go out with a structure up the ice so that we are able to execute the best that we can. But that gives the other team, the opposing team, a chance to defend that properly. And it within either it's the breakout, it's the neutral zone play, or the power play. We've talked about this multiple times on this podcast, that the drop back pass on the power play is not working, and you need to switch it up. Eventually, you're going to have coaches that are going to be able to stop that very the speed that drop pass is going to that player, penetrating the neutral zone and the defensive zone, and they're going to find a way to trap it, and that's exactly what's happened. They've trapped the power play, they've trapped the breakout of the Flames, if not them trying to get into the offensive zone, where obviously that's where you score the most. And it just doesn't seem like they're playing fast enough. They're playing super slow. And the way that they're playing, they need to switch it up, period. And they need to make sure that they are not predictable, because right now they're predictable, and the teams are catching on to that. And that's where their downfall is. And you can say that that's a coach's MO, and that's, Jeff Ward, that's the way that he wants to play. And if you're a player, yeah, okay, you got to listen to the coach. And maybe that's where the problem lies. But I feel like it's just a combination of things. It's just the core that's within there, the leadership group that's within that room isn't really showing it. Like Gio, when they won against Ottawa, I thought that he had a lot of swagger. I thought that he was a leader. And that's the first time I've seen that in years. Yeah. And that needs to be more prominent throughout the entire year. It can't just be little spurts here and there. And that's where I think that there needs to be a leadership change, a captaincy change, a change of the guard, because it doesn't seem like it's working. There needs to be some sort of shakeup other than a fucking coach firing. And within the past 20 years, there's been 11 coaches in the Flames organization. Only one of them has had a NHL head coaching job after being a part of the Flames organization. That was Daryl Sutter, and he won 2 cups. That is it. Period. And stop.
We have a comment from a first-time caller, as he claims himself here. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Hey, Devin and Kevin, tell the Flames to stop stealing Canucks storylines. Blaming the GM and lack of leadership in the room was our thing first. Well, thank you, long-time listener, first-time caller, Chris. We'll see you Sunday. We really appreciate your feedback. We're not. I don't think the Flames are stealing storylines. They just steal players. It's different.
Steal players and retro jerseys
and retro jerseys as well. Retro jerseys as well. So I mean, yeah. Just to clarify, I'm not as hot on the GM as everybody else is. I think the GM has done enough to solidify himself and to make sure that he is safe as a GM. If you look at this team on paper, how can you not love it? How can you not like who is on this roster, right? And maybe I'm completely blind to it, and I'm ready to hear the criticism, and I'm ready to hear the backfire within that, but I don't think firing Brad Treliving is going to change this team. It really depends on who comes in. For the love of God, if Jim Benning gets fired and all of a sudden he gets hired in Calgary, no,
all hope is lost. All hope is lost.
Okay. Just that. Okay. Well, we do not need Jim Benning to come to Calgary. Can you imagine?
My God!
Canucks Twitter would be all like celebrating. That would be oh yeah, that's a good idea.
That would be the stupidest thing that Murray Edwards ever has done. Period.
Yeah.
And oh God. So I'm saying that Brad Treliving is a better GM than Jim Benning. Period.
That's a future poll question. I'm not high on Treliving. I just don't think that. Yes, there's been some sensational. I mean, he's been more creative and more bold than Jim Benning. I will give you that. He's a better communicator than Jim Benning. I will give you that. He has done more trades, but I feel like he's been shuffling some cards. And
he has been, and that's not a bad thing though. Like you're trying to find the right. You're trying to find the right chemistry and the right fit in the room. And that's what happened with Dougie Hamilton. And look what you got back. You got a 1B center in Elias Lindholm. You got a top 3 young defenseman in Noah Hannafin. Sorry, Sean. I think that take is completely and utter bullshit and nonsense. The fact that trading away, you had Adam Fox, you had Michael Ferland. And
we should have a segment when it's just you and I of what we call Sean's bad takes,
so that he can't cut us off and tell us that it's stupid. Yes,
And then if I'm ever not on, you guys can do Kevin's bad takes or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kevin, there's a lot. There's a lot there, man. I'm just kidding. But like honestly, in all honesty, it's. I feel like Tree Living has done a good amount of trying to make this team better, and willing to make this team better. Because who in their right mind would trade a top defenseman, top scoring defenseman in this league of Dougie Hamilton if he wasn't fitting in the room properly? And that might be an old school mentality from Tree Living, but I feel like overall he really has done a good job in that. The positives that he's done outdoes the negatives, and by a decent amount and a decent margin, because there's a lot of GMs in this league that have done fucking shit all and have done terrible things for their own organization. And I feel like Brad Tree Living is on the upper echelon of that median, if you will.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you, just to let you know, to preview Sunday, I'm going to give you I'm going to do the Sean, and I'm going to give the long reason of why I think it's time for Brad Tree Living to go. I will save it. I will save it.
I can't wait to yell at you, Kev. This is gonna be great.
Listen, it's totally fine, because it's all in good fun.
It is.
Here's a couple. We'll get to one topic that kind of came up in Flames Twitter because Rhett Warner mentioned his name, but I do want to ask you a question about Sam Bennett. He's asked. We talked about this with the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation. If you're the Flames, would you just sit Sam Bennett and say, wait to be traded?
Not now. I think they still have a chance to make the playoffs. That's not technically what I would do. I feel like I would sit them. But as far as I feel like if you're doing that, then you send a message towards the group that you're giving up and that you're done, because Sam Bennett is an NHLer. Sam Bennett he can be a difference maker. It's whether or not he is willing and smart enough to do that from night to night. And I don't know if he is that type of player to know when to do certain things. And I feel like he's still figuring that out, but if the Flames want to make the playoffs, then yes, he stays in. But if they don't, then yes, sit him and wait for trade offers. But the only thing with that is that if you do that, if you're Brad Tree Living and you do that, or if you're Jeff Ward getting the orders from Brad Tree Living to do that, then you want to sell him at a high point. You don't want to sell him because he is being a poor sport and that he wants to sit and that he wants to trade. You want to showcase him. That's why he was on the top line. I know there's a lot of criticism for that, and I know that there's a lot of people saying that he shouldn't, or Jeff Ward shouldn't have put him on the top line. But you're showcasing him. You're showing off his talents and what he can do. And I mean, not saying that he can do that, because he didn't show that he can do that. But the sad thing about it is that he is the best fit on that top line with Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan. And because there have been no other players that have shown that they can play there.
I guess to me, the reason I ask that is I think that this they certainly have not. I think that one of the turning points of this year is it was the Sam Bennett public trade request, how that came out. They haven't been the same since. And I wonder at that time if they just would have said, okay, you know what, I understand that you want to shop Sam, and I get all that. But maybe it would have been the time to say, you know what, you're just going to sit until we trade you. If you don't want to be here, fine. I will sell. If I'm Tree, I will sell it as high as I can. But I can't help but to notice that it has to be a bit of a distraction, because I mean, you're not sure what effort you're going to get from him. I mean, you can, and I know what your counter is. You're not sure what effort you're going to get from anybody. But at the same time, this is a guy that has publicly said publicly mentioned he wanted out.
It's really hard to say what's going on in that room. You can only speculate, and especially with how many questions there are within that core, because you don't know who is good and who is bad within that room. God, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, in my mind. It's a 50-50 split, and I understand both sides of keeping him in and sitting him out, but I truly believe that nothing is going to happen within the season. I feel like it's going to be a death march. I feel like Jeff Ward is going to stay as head coach of this team. I feel like there's going to be no real major moves. I think there might be some peripheral moves.
There is a move that I think can be made.
Okay, who?
I think if you're going on the death march, I think it is. I think that it is respectful to do this. I think that you should trade Mark Giordano. Honestly, the guy.
I agree.
Listen. We can talk about how much he struggled this year. He's 37 years old. He has fought his ass off for this team. Like no one has. He won a Norris. The guy deserves an opportunity to win a Stanley Cup. And if you're on this death march, I think that it is respectful to at least give Mark Giordano the opportunity to play for that cup. He's not going to have a lot of opportunities to do it. And I think that that's if you're on the death march, I think you have to I think that is almost the most respectful thing that you can do for Mark Giordano.
I agree. You got to have that conversation with him that he's willing to move, and that only happens when they are very the fact that they're not going to make it, even though it's mathematically probable. You can see the writing on the wall, and I feel like you see it now, and whether or not he's willing to move anywhere, and so that he has the chance to win a cup, because he does deserve it. The only thing within doing that is, okay, how much salary are you retaining? Because there's going to be a salary retention.
Okay, you know what? That's one of those situations that if I'm the Flames, I think it's the right thing to do. If you're moving out, I think the right thing to do is give Giordano that opportunity. And I honestly think that the Flames fan base would be all like, go get it, Gio, like they did with Iginla. Go get that cup. We did not serve you enough. We did not surround you enough, and you deserve that opportunity. Honestly, and you could and it's not unreasonable that you couldn't trade him to another North team. You could trade him to Winnipeg.
You could trade him to Winnipeg. They
going to Winnipeg.
Going to Winnipeg.
Going to Winnipeg.
It definitely it is a possibility for sure. Do I think it'll happen? Maybe, but I don't know if Gio would want to go. And even though that would mean that he gets a cup or potentially could strive to get a cup, I just.
Are you bringing Gio back next year? Like you're not.
Well, he has 1 year left. He has 1 year left.
But you're not protecting him. You're not protecting him for the expansion draft.
No, you're not.
So why not? To me,
I know, and that's whether or not you can get a good return for him, and that he's willing to go. Right. And I want to see him succeed. I want him to do well. But when it really comes down to it, it's really up to him and him deciding whether or not he's willing to do that. Because if he's not, then that's a different issue. Right.
That's fair. But
as a fan, I would love to see him do well.
Yeah. The other thing, the name came up. It is not a rumor, but Rhett Warner threw the name out there, Daryl Sutter. I think some Flame fans got excited about that idea. I think that he's a guy that does command respect, whether you like it or not. He brings two Stanley Cups as a coach, and a bunch of player success. His ways are old school. The question that I would have is his game suitable enough for the current National Hockey League? I will tell. Here's the thing that I think that is where I think Daryl Sutter would have an advantage. If he wanted to bench Johnny Gaudreau, he's not going to Brad Treliving. He's benching Johnny Gaudreau.
Yep.
And it's not like this is not something that's going up any chain. He's like, I'm benching Johnny Gaudreau. I don't give a fuck what you have to say, really. And I what I do think is if the Flames were going to make this may sound ridiculous to some people, then some people may think it's pie in the sky. But if the Flames were going to make a coaching change, I don't think Daryl Sutter is off any list. I do think that would be something that they would consider doing. He's close by. He knows the organization. There is a Sutter in the organization. Ron is a scout.
Yep.
I don't know if it's as far-fetched as people think.
I love
really
the idea. I love it. I love it. I think that he would bring what they were looking for without having the whole Bob Hartley bullshit of it all. But you bring up a good point, Kevin. It's whether or not he's willing to be able to make a little bit of change to his coaching style to suit these players in the way that their makeup is now. You gotta really think hard about that decision and sending that message, because if you bring him in, that's sending a hell of a message, which I think they need. But the other thing is whether or not he's willing to. I don't think that he is. As much as I would love to see him come back and show the Flames what they need to fucking do, but I just don't think that he. I think he's happy where he is, ranching up in central to northern Alberta, and that he loves doing that. That's in his bones. That's what he grew up doing. That's why he quit, and that's why he left LA, was because that he wanted to. He didn't feel the passion anymore, the love of the game anymore. So if it does happen, I'll be very surprised. But overall, I just don't think that. I don't think that he has the will and determination to come back. But I feel like the Flames do need that hard ass view, and that Daryl cared about his players, right? The fact that Rhett Warner speaks so highly of him shows that he cared for his players.
And Rhett Warner is pretty connected with the organization. He worked with the organization last year. I don't think that he would say the name Daryl Sutter flippantly. I just don't. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think he may not want to, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a conversation. That's all I'm saying.
Oh no, there's going to be a conversation. I mean, if he's bringing it up, there's already been a conversation. There's no doubt in my mind. The only way that they didn't have a conversation is that they know that he's done. He's done doing what he loves, and he's accepted retirement. But otherwise, yeah, you got to have that phone call.
Fair enough. We got a question here. I'm late, Nate. Hello, Nate. I'm late, but what do you think about signing Hyman versus Riley? I think Morgan Riley is the best defenseman in this division. I think he's a Norris division. I think he's a Norris Trophy candidate. I think he should. I think he was the guy that probably should have wore the C in Toronto, but doesn't. If it's the question is who do you sign, Riley or Hyman? IDT would love Zach Hyman, but my God, Morgan Riley is the guy you want, no?
Yeah. Morgan Riley, he's 26 years old. I agree with Kev. I think that he should be a Norris candidate. He should have been the captain in my mind over John Tavares. I think that Hyman, he is definitely a heart and souler. He is one of those guys that you win with, and I have a feeling that we won't be able to afford him. I feel like as far as Hyman goes, I feel like he will have so many offers on the table because of what he's done. There you go. What he's done for the organization and how high he is praised within this within the Maple Leafs, how he can be on that top line, his ability to move up and down the lineup. I feel like it depends on how much he loves the city and how much if he's willing to do a quote unquote hometown discount, really will come into play. But I feel like he will be. He'll be sought after by so many teams. I don't know. I feel like if you want both of them, you won't be able to get both of them. But if you want one of them, I would say Morgan Riley over Zach Hyman. Zach Hyman, Zach Hyman is one of the players that that'll take you over the edge, that you will be able to win a Stanley Cup with. So if the Leafs can keep him, great. But I think overall you want to keep Morgan Riley over him.
Yeah, you love a Zach Hyman, but you've got a McKayev, you've got an Engvall, you got Nick Robertson coming. I'm not saying Robertson's Hyman, but you've got ways to replace Hyman. Morgan Riley is a piece that is hard to replace. That's the problem.
Top 4 defenseman over a. I don't know if there's any really comparison out there as of right now. I can't think of any. Maybe an Andre Palat down in Tampa Bay. He scores more than Hyman does, but kind of a similar player, hard nose, willing to get in the gritty areas, get the puck to the skilled players. I really don't know what he'll potentially get. I could see him getting $4 million for maybe 4 years or maybe even 5 years, depending on the team and whether or not he's willing to go to a team that maybe isn't really ready to win as of right now, but could be within the next 2 to 3 years, could be a contender, maybe like a Carolina, maybe even a Florida, because Florida's been surging here pretty lately as well. So it'd be hard to sign him for that long for that kind of cap hit. But Morgan Riley, he's making $5 million for the next year after this year, and you could see him potentially. I mean, for sure, he's only 26, so you could see him getting $7 to $8, maybe even $9 million here in Toronto. I mean, obviously you gotta make sure that you have the cap room to do that, especially with Freddie Anderson off the books after this, or the exact same time he is. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's whether or not you see where the direction of the Toronto Maple Leafs are going, and whether or not they want to have that top 4 defenseman within Morgan Riley, or you want to have the diversity of Zach Hyman, or even a number 1 goalie with Freddie Anderson.
To me, the question is it's not Riley isn't your panic for important. Like, Riley is important. You want to get that done, but you don't have to get that done this year. You have next year to do that. The question really is Hyman or Anderson, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good little twist. Do you think that Jack Campbell can be able to solidify himself as a number 1, or maybe even like a 1A, 1B combo? As of right now, you can kind of see it. You definitely can. I mean, personally, I would rather have a number 1 goalie, but I feel like Anderson will get more on the trade market than he would get in Toronto, especially with the top 4 making as much as they are. Say if you look down the list right here for your goalie depth, you have Ian Scott, who is he's highly touted, and his RFA, or he needs a new contract in 22-23. So you can kind of see a potential 1A, 1B tandem within that, but I don't know. It's really hard to say, especially with those 3 kind of coming up, especially within the next 2 years. God, it's Kyle Dubas. He makes things a lot more simple than they seem, I find, at least. And I feel like he'll find a way out of it, whether or not it's within the trade within the next little bit, or he just rides it out and banners fly forever.
Yep. That's the big thing. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, to Nate's point there on his last one, I don't trust Hutchinson either. It's he's like I said before in the podcast, he's an AHLer, and you have a good core in front of him. As weird as that says to be the Maple Leafs, but I just don't see. I don't see them trusting Hutchinson going forward either.
Yeah, to be that's the thing. Also, Tobias, rare to catch the live. Sup, boyos. Sup.
Hey man.
Let's just quickly touch on the Canucks here. The big thing I wanted to get into is, what do you do with Braden Holtby? Here.
Yeah, Braden Holtby, he hasn't really been good enough to take the job from Demko. Thank you. But anytime. he's only there for a little bit. Like what is it? Was it a 1 year or 3 year deal?
2 year deal.
2 year deal. There you go.
And you're in a situation where you're going to have to run Demko anyway at some point here. But the question really is if Demko, how much you play Holtby down the stretch here.
You gotta. Realistically, give Demko as many starts as you can. If he is your future, he will prove that he is your future. Enough babying him, really. And when he needs a break, put in Holtby. To me, that it's just as simple as that. You got to know what you have in Demko. You have to. There's a small sample size. Tyler would be happy that I'm saying this. It was a small sample size this past year. He needs to prove himself. So don't run him into the ground, but get him starts. Get him as many starts as you can, so you understand what you're looking at and who you have there. The defensive core and the defensive zone structure within the Canucks isn't the best, and it could be detrimental to his development. But I feel like he's proved himself enough that he would be able to do that and show that he's, if not a 1B, a 1A within this league, or even a fucking starter. Who knows?
Yeah. That's an interesting situation amongst a bunch of interesting situations in Vancouver, is what you do with that goaltending situation.
Yep.
And that was as good as we applauded that was a pretty high signing. That's another cap hit that the Canucks are going to have to think about in the off season. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, the Canucks are so fucked as far as the cap goes.
Flip it. Well, let's leave it there. We will be back Sunday at 11 o'clock Pacific, 12 o'clock Mountain. Sean will be back. Tyler will be back. Our first time caller, Chris, will be on the other side. So that'll be nice.
That'll be nice.
Thanks
for listening, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for listening.
And really, Tobias and Nate, appreciate you.
Everyone coming in there. Yeah. How do we follow you?
I am Gordhouse09 on Twitter. I'm not normally the first guy that says that, so it's kind of a nice change.
I know.
Gordhouse09 on Twitter.
Gordhouse09 on Twitter. He posts dog pics.
Yes.
DOG, by the way. Anyway. Beardy Canuck 03, Schneids SCHNEIDZ, Tyler is TNOBLE, I am KVOLE, podcast_hockey, Facebook.com the hockey podcast, YouTube.com the hockey podcast. The audio will be out. Probably I'll get it out in the morning before I head to school. And thanks everyone. Thanks Devin for jumping on, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now. Good night, boys. Good work.